It's a lovely day, so I thought I'd go for a run indoors in the gym. Anyway, so far we have created the home screen. We've created the My Gig screen so users can select which gig they've been to, as a push there. And we have set up the sign up and sign in functionality. Great. So now we move away from static data in our database. We move towards live dynamic data, which is very exciting. Now, we're going to get that live data from external sources. Those sources being a nice little app called Skiddle that you can use to book gigs and events, and also our benevolent corporate overlords, Ticketmaster, who I would never have a bad thing to say about. And I'm going to get data from them and store it in our database with APIs. Yeah, so that's what I'll be showing in this video. I will say that I don't think going through code line by line is the most exciting thing in the world, so I'm going to try and take it to a slightly higher level and just talk about the intent and the impact, the output, and the issues of the code so far. So yeah, hopefully just talking at a bit more of a high level should hopefully make it a bit more digestible and less boring. So cool. I will see you when I'm back at my desk.
And we're back. Please ignore the absolute state of the background. My office is turning more and more into a skip, but on the plus side, that means house renovations are progressing, so that's nice for me. Um, but yeah, the APIs, like I said, I initially settled on the Skiddle API, but before I did that, I did look at several other ones. And I'm sure it's not just my decrepit old brain forgetting or changing things, but some things have definitely changed. I'm sure the dice one wasn't available when I was initially looking, but here it is now. And there was another one I looked at and called Jambase that I actually got the API key for. All right, bit of a jump cut from the future, and yes, I am wearing the same the same sweater for continuity. But basically, at this point in the video, I was talking about how I was really confused that Jambase looked completely different to how it did when I started using it 6 to 12 months ago, and now it's paid and before it was free and all sorts of nonsense. And basically, all I think has happened is that they probably haven't changed anything, and I just didn't pay attention when I was signing up back then. Um, it looks like it covers international events now. On the website, it shows that you can sign up for a free trial, which is probably the key that I've got. And I think it pulls in data from a lot of different sources, so it could act as a single point of truth, which would be really useful in the future if I could simply have one data source rather than having to have multiple. But that's something for the future. And yeah, I will cut back to the video now. So why did I choose the Skiddle API as the first one I was going to use to get data in? There were two main reasons for it, really. The first one being that it's free, and the second one being that it's simple to use. Both of those things are crucial for me being able to get the MVP of the app up and running quickly with the idea to come back and improve and build on it later, which I kind of did with the Ticketmaster data source because that came in quite a bit later, but they were the main reasons why I chose it. So, what do I mean by simple to use? Well, there's only 3 endpoints, which is about as simple as you can get. But crucially, it still does everything I need it to. You've got your artists, your venues, and your events, which is eerily familiar. So that's all good. We've got this data source. How do we get into the tables? So the process is going to consist of 3 steps. It's going to be fetching the data, parsing the data, and then inserting it into the tables. So in order to show you that, let's hop on over to the code. All right, this is where the magic happens. So first of all, it's a Python script, and we do our basic setup during all of our imports. Then we initialize the Supabase client, and we lay out the Skiddle API endpoints and the API key. Then the first function is fetch data, which is the one that actually goes to Skiddle and grabs the data based on the endpoint that you give it. Then we have pass artists, pass venues, and pass events. So these take data from the fetch call and organize it so that it's ready for insertion and it fits the structure of the tables. The next function is record exists, and that checks to see if we already have the data being pulled in our tables, so we can skip it if we do, and insert data pops it into our tables. So all of those functions are kind of like the individual tools, and then the fetch all data and the fetch events for all artists use those tools. So down here at the bottom under main, I use fetch all data with the artist endpoint, and then I run it again with the venues endpoint. So I've got all my artist data and all my venues data in my tables, and then once that's done, I can run the fetch events for all artists, and then that will grab all of the event data, but it will be able to link it in the tables to the existing venue and artist data. All right, with that all being done, there's only one thing left to do. Kick it off, kick back, and watch all of that sweet, sweet data come streaming into tables. All right, I actually had to stop that because it was taking too damn long. I was trying to let it run, and I actually want to demonstrate it hitting a rate limit error, and that's because that was one of the main issues I come up against when I was doing this for real when I first did it. Now obviously companies put in measures to stop people taking a piss with their APIs and abusing them, and rate limits is one method of doing that. I think with this Skiddle API, I was able to make 5,000 calls before I would hit a limit, and then I'd have to wait a certain amount of time. I can't remember, maybe 12 hours, 24 hours before I could go again. Um, uh, I actually go around this a little bit by creating a separate account and getting a second API key and just alternated between them. So yeah, that's a bit of a cheeky workaround. So yeah, don't tell Skiddle about that. So once I'd got as much data from Skiddle as I could, I carried on with other aspects of the app, like all the front end stuff, which I will come on to in the next video. But the plan was always to have as big and as comprehensive data set as possible. And as good as the Skiddle API is, it doesn't have everything. So the next step would be to get more data sources. And this is where Ticketmaster came in. So they may be bastards, but they have a hell of a lot of data. So for the Ticketmaster data, I was taking the same general approach, but how I did it had to be slightly different. Their API is different, the structure of the data is different. In general, it's more comprehensive and more complex than what you get from Skiddle. And that's what you can see here on the screen. So on the left-hand side, we've got one event from Ticketmaster, and on the right-hand side, you've got one event from Skiddle. And if you go down here, you can see it is fucking huge. It's redonkulous. Like, there's so much information in here, which amazing. Like, more information, you can do more things, right? It's great. So there's 484 lines in here. Skiddle, 64 lines. I mean, it kind of gives you everything you need as well. So it's probably easier to work through. It's easier to use, but it's a lot smaller and it's structured differently as well. So that's an additional challenge, getting these two kind of very different sets of data to be transformed, meshed together, so that they end up in the same format in my tables. But aside from that, yeah, in theory, it should have been really quite easy, seeing as I'd already just done it with this Skiddle thing. So if I get rid of these for a second, go away, and have a look at my Ticketmaster script, it essentially does the same thing in the same format and the same way. I copied my Skiddle one and tweaked it. But rather than a standard rate limit like the Skiddle one had, Ticketmaster has a strange rule, which is the page number times the size has to be less than 1000, which is a major pain in the ass. So this limit is kind of hard coded in regardless of what parameters you use. No matter which way you slice it, if you try to increase or decrease the page size or the number of results on a page, you're only getting 1000 results back. So, for example, if I'm looking for artists in the pop genre, there might be 50,000 artists in there, 50,000 items. And obviously, I can't get all of those at once with this limit. So, what I have to do is break it down into subgenres and they can overlap. So, while I can't say just give me all of the pop artists, I can say give me all of the crunch pop artists, and I can get every single one of those. And then I can say give me the terror pop artists, and I might not get all of them. It might be a slightly too many, but there'll be some overlap, um, and so on and so forth with other subgenres. So while I won't be able to get every single piece of data because there'll be some items that don't quite overlap or that I can't reach, it gives me much more than I would have otherwise. So how exactly do I do this in practice, I hear you ask? Well, let me show you, and it is fucking stupid. All right, so we start off here with the get artists function, which goes and grabs all of the artist data, and then we've got the pass artists, which again should all look really familiar, and it sticks them all nicely, just taking the information we want and sticking it into an array. So far, so good, right? Then we have get genres and pass genres. So in here, we're pulling out the subgenres and putting that into an array. Now let's just skip all of that for a second. Once we've got that massive list of subgenres and a big list of artists, what we do is down here in fetch all data, we basically say for everything in that subgenre, go and get all of the artists. So yeah, basically in every subgenre, go and grab all the artists and insert it into tables, which is great. But then obviously we're going to hit the limit. So what I had to do was go through, and when I hit a limit on a subgenre, I'd have to go through and remove them individually from the subgenre array, which was a hell of a lot of copy and pasting this command. So yeah, that was definitely not the best way to do it. It's really, yeah, really stupid. But you know what? It got the data in, and I will come back and I will figure out a much better way of doing it properly next time. And that, children, is how I got live data into my tables. So, what was good about that? Well, it worked, technically. I got data from external sources into my tables, so that's good. That's probably about it. In terms of what is bad or what could be improved, well, first of all, I need to redo the whole lot so that it's set up to run regularly, like on a cron job. I need it to run automatically and at scheduled time and just update changes and additions.
and it needs to be able to get around things like rate limits as well. There are definitely gaps in the Ticketmaster data, as you can only get so much even by breaking it down into sub genres. Sometimes there are going to be people who don't overlap and that I miss. I've only got the Ticketmaster data for artists, so I need to go back and get the venues and events, which is probably going to be a whole other bunch of complications. And the ridiculous approach I took to whittling down subgenres, I definitely can't be doing that again in the future. I need to find a more elegant solution for that. And as I started doing the Ticketmaster data, I realized that over here in my Supabase backend, I was at that point when I was importing the Skiddle data, it was going directly into the artist, event, and venues tables, like the actual live ones, which is the wrong approach. So I had to go ahead and create Skiddle artists and Ticketmaster artists and put only data from their specific, their respective sources in there. And then I'm going to have to basically come up with data transformation that runs on a regular schedule to transform data into those tables so that they both fit into the artist tables. And that's going to have to be the same thing for if I do pack in any more data sources. So there's a lot more work to be done there. Yeah, and like I said, as seems to be the way with everything so far, I just kind of pulled all this together in a very hacky way, just to get some live data into my tables so I could move on and continue building. And I'll definitely need to come back to, I would not even refine, to fix and redo everything. All right, this video has ended up being a hell of a lot longer than I wanted it to. I thought I was trying to keep it short, and it's just reminded me of a hell of a lot more work that I've got to do. So I'm gonna leave it there, and yeah, thanks. See you later. Bye.